But I'll call the meeting to order and then it's going to work.
Perfect. I think you call the meeting to order and then the vice chair becomes chair. And then
With that, look at that.
So, and
Well, thank you. Let's this in the pledge. Cool.
Indivisible.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Chair Judge,
Here.
Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Broggie,
Here.
Commissioner Crosswhite,
Here.
Commissioner Enegren, Commissioner Enegren, Commissioner Engler,
Here.
Commissioner Gorell,
I'm here.
Commissioner Halter,
here.
Commissioner Levere, Commissioner MacArthur, Commissioner McQueen-Lejeune,
Here.
Commissioner Parvin,
Here.
Commissioner Tremblay, Commissioner White,
Here.
Commissioner Regisford.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we have to move on to the election of a vice chair. So how do we do that?
So thank you, Chair Judge. At this point, we will be appointing a vice chair for the commission, and the vice chair will become the chair this time next year through the process we just went through. So the floor is open, Mr. Chair, for nominations for anyone who's interested in being nominations or people who are interested in serving as vice chair.
Thank you. Do we have any nominations for vice chair? Do we have a nomination for Commissioner McQueen-Lejeune?
I'd second that. I'd second that if I may.
Second. Any other nominations? I guess, or just, if that's it? Voice vote? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry about the voice, but I'm just getting over something. Oh, yeah, move away. Do we have any public comments?
We have no public comments, correct? Yeah.
The Caltrans report.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commission, members of the public. Just want to give some brief remarks. As you all know, Caltrans, we are, of course, actively monitoring our roadways as we have experienced the recent disasters, and we have been affected at our district office and staff. But the main thing that we want to do right now is first and foremost support our communities, support our local partner agencies as well as we go through the recovery process for the wildfires, but also in preparation for, of course, the storms that are approaching us. We know, of course, we've had weather today and yesterday and even previously, and we are looking at weather potentially for next week. So our maintenance crews are on standby out on the roadways, as we have our geotech staff as well on standby for any potential landslides that we may expect as part of the oncoming storms. However, definitely appreciate all the support that we've gotten from VCTC and partner agencies all across Ventura County. And also just as a note, the other thing that is top of mind for us is just thinking about how we support our partners with the state and federal funding. We know that a state of emergency has been declared, and we are actively seeking any sort of technical feedback that our partner agencies need to access any state funding as part of the state of emergency. but also for the federal funds, we know that there is an incoming administration that has different priorities, and we are looking to see how the priorities affect our federal funding opportunities and pursuits. So Caltrans is here and actively working with our headquarters team to just determine what the federal funding opportunities will look like moving forward, and of course, in coordination with our local partners. Just lastly, of course, we have many projects and investigations going on all across the county. If there's any questions and thoughts on that, I'm happy to take any questions accordingly. That concludes my brief remarks for today. I'm happy to take any questions or thoughts. Appreciate the time, Mr. Chair.
You have any questions for anyone? Okay, thank you very much for the report. Moving on to commissioners' reports. Any commissioners' reports? Okay, moving right along. Executive Director report.
Welcome, Chair, Judge. Thank you again for serving as chair for VCTC. I wanted to devote at least a good portion of my Executive Director's report to thanking Commissioner LaVere for his service as chair over the last year, and again welcoming Commissioner Judge as he takes over the chairmanship. I also want to welcome some of our newest members. We have 4 new members to the commission, 3 of which just came on in the last month. They weren't here. We didn't know yet who they were at the last meeting, but the first of the 4 was here. He actually made our quorum. Mayor Louise MacArthur from the city of Oxnard, again, welcome. Looking forward to having you as part of our commission. And I think I shared with you, I worked for the city for 13 years, so I still feel like part of my heart is over there. And then secondly, we have the Deputy Mayor, Doug Halter, from the city of Ventura. Welcome, Doug Halter. And
thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And I wanted to say, I want to give each of you a chance to once I just introduce you all to say a few words about being on the commission. Our 3rd new commission that's here is our newest citizen member representing cities, Danny Anderson. And our 4th new member from the city of Ojai, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, is Rachel Lang from the city of Ojai. But I just want to give an opportunity real quick if each of you would like to just say, oh, hello again. Start with you, Mayor MacArthur.
With you back then in Oxnard, and you always have that bright personality, makes everybody feel welcome. So thank you for that. I'm certainly honored to be here representing the city of Oxnard. Many of you know I worked for the police department for 35 years. I'm native to Oxnard. I still have a young family. I've got a 2, a 3, and a 6-year-old that I'm raising. And walking the campaign trail, it's my first time in politics. But one of the things that was raised is our transportation. So when I was having a conversation with the city manager, talking about what commissions we were interested in getting involved in. So for me, it was very, very quickly to be involved in this commission just to learn more about our transportation infrastructure. And with Oxnard being the biggest city, and we have a large population we just have a vulnerable community, as do other cities. But for us, particularly for me, I grew up in the South and I still have 5 family in the South End, and it's quite challenging sometimes to get from one place to the other, particularly for stores and things like that. So I'm just excited to be here and having robust conversations and be an active participant. So thank you for welcoming me, and I look forward to collaborating with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Halter.
Great. Of course, I would be happy to speak for the rest of the meeting's time, but no, actually, I try to keep it short. I have competition, I'll bet. But okay, I think I'd be done by like 4:50, 4:45 or something. With all that, I think I know a lot of you, so it's great to be here amongst all of you and be part of this this board. So I've been happy to serve. I'm very honored to be I have served the 1 term already for the city of Ventura, and just got reelected to my 2nd term, and then got elected as deputy mayor, serving with Dr. Jeanette Sanchez Palacios as our mayor, our new mayor of the city of Ventura. I'm very excited at this point in time. There's so many things going on across across the state, across the country, across the world. I think more than anything, our mission as elected officials is really to maintain decorum, maintain respect, and maintain an open space for people to share their opinions, and for us to make the bold decisions that we need to make to get on the right footing and right path. And I've always felt that transportation is absolutely key to the future of our state, of our region, of our cities, and it needs to be worked in conjunction with housing and the housing demands that the state's forcing upon every city, okay, that we desperately need. So I think it's really important what we're doing here. I'm very honored to be a part of this group and hoping to find the solutions for what we have in transportation options today and what may be options in the future. So thanks, and I'm very honored to be here. It's great to see Danny too. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Anderson.
Commissioner Anderson. I just want to say thank you. I'm very happy to move to the table. All of you know I was in the room for all of these meetings, so it's just a different view, and I'm looking very forward to being part of making public transit even better. And I wanted to say thank you to the mayors and designees for their votes at the city selection and the support of my county supervisors. And many of you know I'm the disability access manager for the county of Ventura, so I'm really happy to bring the disability voice to the commission and work with all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I as the executive director, I say this, with full excitement and humility. You're joining a board of just dedicated public servants, and they all wear many other hats besides serving on this commission. And I'm grateful for the spirit, though, in which they tackle some of these challenging regional transportation issues. A lot of money flows through this agency. I'm supported by a small but mighty staff, who the new commissioners will be meeting more as we kind of onboard you onto the into the VCTC family. But very excited to have you along, and Chair Judge, it's exciting to have you as chair. Chair Judge also has a long history as in public service as a former police officer. So Mayor MacArthur, you guys are a chance to connect there. And Vice Chair McQueen-Lejeune, I'm very excited you are Vice Chair. I know this is an especially busy year for you, as we've talked about. So grateful that you will be serving as Vice Chair, and just looking forward very much to the challenges and opportunities that are coming before us as we start this 2025. I was a history major as an undergrad, so I'm always thinking of things in timelines, and it's still sinking in on me that we are, a quarter way through this century now. So it's going fast, but we have a lot of good work to do. We have an adopted 5-year strategic plan, which we are just a couple years into. A lot of the projects underway, and many more to complete. You have an executive director's report before you. I will not go through the whole thing. I just wanted to touch on a few things. Our theme of partnerships, which really will be, I think, the ongoing theme of the commission this year. As I've said before, VCTC is really based on its enduring and successful partnerships with so many different agencies, whether it's Caltrans and Director Roberts and her team, or Gold Coast Transit with General Manager Rauschenberger, or County Office of Environmental Services with Patrick Maynard. Just some of especially recently with our assistance in the fires and other issues we're facing. I always want to take a moment to brag on my staff, so I'm excited to announce that I put in the report our own Amanda Fagan, Director of Planning and Sustainability, was selected as one of the Progressive Railroading, which is a magazine and a railroad, national railroad institution. She was chosen as one of the Women of Influence in Rail in the sustainability category based on her work on the Santa Paula branch line. Wish we could. As many of you know, there's a lot of stuff happening on that little branch line. It's a little I'd say more mellow right now, which is good. But a year and a half ago, we were definitely grappling with some somewhat thorny issues. And then finally, I just want to note again, Mayor MacArthur, you probably have heard about this, but one of our biggest transportation projects is breaking ground in Oxnard soon, and that is the Rice Avenue grade separation. This is over a $133 million project. Obviously, Caltrans being a significant partner in that, but just wanted to note Assemblymember Jackie Irwin's assistance in this, Congresswoman Julia Brownlee. This project of this magnitude for our region without a sales tax aren't easy to come by, and we're grateful that that is moving forward. This project will obviously create tremendous safety improvements. Having a grade crossing over this active rail project, but there will also be several other improvements. I was actually still working in the city of Oxnard when that collision happened, and I was the first staff to interact with the NTSB after that accident, and it was still remember it pretty clearly. So it's wonderful to be at the point we are now, moving forward. Finally, I just want to thank the city of Camarillo again for hosting us, hosting VCTC for all of its existence, for its commission meetings at their city hall. We are, I will keep you all posted. It looks like we are probably going to have our first commission meeting in April there. They are still working through things. If that changes, I know some people to call and find out if it's going to be earlier, but right now it's looking like our March meeting will still be here next month, but I'll make sure to let you all know. But I will say, having toured and seen that, it's a pretty fantastic new city hall. I was kind of joking, it's kind of like the Starship Enterprise. They have so many new technology to implement. It will definitely be exciting. So I know you're proud of that. With that, I'm open to any questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Amanda's being honored, but it's a virtual honor. How are we really going to celebrate it from our side? I mean, we really need to celebrate it too.
We are promoting the event.
Okay.
So it is a virtual event. So it's kind of limited.
So she gets her plaque mailed to her. Is what that means?
Virtually.
Virtually, she gets to look at it virtually. Okay. Well, it's congratulations. It's a very big deal. So congratulations.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, any additions or revisions to the agenda?
You have no additions or revisions, Chair.
All right. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. Does anybody like anything pulled, or I'll accept a motion?
Move adoption.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. How would we vote on that? Just by voice?
Voice.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
I'd like to abstain from the minutes since I wasn't here to verify that.
On to the discussion calendar. Item 11, fiscal year 25-26 Transportation Development Act. TDA unmet transit needs. And this is a public hearing. Open the public hearing. Is that what we do?
Good morning, Chair, Judge, and Commissioners. Welcome, new Commissioners. My name is Dolores Lopez, and I'm here to provide a brief overview of the annual unmet transit needs for fiscal year 25-26. This is item 11. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony about public transit needs in Ventura County. So before we open it up to public comment, I do have a brief presentation. The unmet transit needs process is a key part of allocating Transportation Development Act TDA funds for non-transit uses. TDA funds come from both STA, State Transit Assistant funds, which are sourced from statewide gas and diesel taxes, and the Local Transportation Fund, LTF, from a 1/4 cent of statewide sales taxes. So these funds are distributed based on population and are used to prioritize critical transit services across Ventura County. Okay. The cities eligible for TDA funds are cities with a population of 100,000 or less, and are not part of the Gold Coast Transit District service area. So that includes the cities of Camarillo, Fillmore Moore Park, Santa Paula, and by special statute, the city of Thousand Oaks. An unmet transit need refers to new or expanded service requests. So to be considered, a request must meet a threshold of 15 comments for fixed route service or 10 comments for dial-a-ride service. For a request to be reasonable to be met, it must have enough vehicles to support it, not reduce existing services, and operate safely on the proposed routes. So, and if implemented, the service must meet fare box recovery standards as required by the TDA. So I want to highlight some of the recent improvements that have come out of this process. So first, Metrolink we've expanded Metrolink to include complete weekend service that began in July of 2023. On the Highway 101 route, we've reinstated and expanded the service back to Woodland Hills, the Warner Center route loop. And then one of our most requested through this process has been service between Fillmore and Moore Park, which began in August of 2024. That is currently operated by our Valley Express system. So overall, though, we have received many valuable comments, and although not all of them meet our criteria for an unmet transit need, we have been able to improve countywide bus service through this process. So we are currently in the public hearing stage of our annual unmet transit needs process. Since mid-December, we have actively collected feedback through community outreach and surveys. Today, we are holding our public hearing, and once this period concludes, we will compile and will analyze all the feedback received throughout this period. And if any of the comments or suggestions meet our criteria, then in May, we will bring back to this committee our findings with our recommendations. So as we approach the close of our engagement period with today's public hearing, here's a recap of what we've done so far. We've conducted a trilingual survey to ensure wide accessibility. We've held community meetings to engage directly with the public that we serve. And today we're holding our public hearing. We ask, though, that the public continue to share their insights through visiting our website, emailing us, phone calls, or sharing their input through social media. So today marks the conclusion of our public engagement period for this cycle. As outlined, we held several community meetings, listening sessions, including in the cities of Fillmore and Camarillo, and one virtual session. For those who wanted to participate but couldn't attend in person. We did add a date that just happened last week in Fillmore. Due to the recent and devastating fires in LA County, we had a very low public engagement at our Fillmore session, which caused us to add a date in February so we could give people that wanted their voice to be heard an opportunity to come out. So that concludes my presentation. You can feel free to use the QR code that is on this last slide to leave us your comments. It'll link you directly to our survey. And with that, I will open up the public hearing.
Go ahead. Comments or questions?
One quick question is, when do you expect I think, give the recommendations back to this commission.
In May.
in May.
So yeah,
Thank you.
we will meet with our Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee as well as with the Social Service Transportation Advisory Committee, and then we'll bring those findings back in May.
Excellent, thank you.
Go ahead.
So we posted it on our website, posted it on buses, on car cards. We shared it on social media, as well as shared it with all the cities to be able to post it on their social medias and on the newspaper.
Any others? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had the honor of sitting on the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee for like 10 years. And this was a big deal for a lot of people. And for many of them, the idea was all we have to do is just tell us what our unmet need is. And 99% of them never were met because they didn't meet that criteria. But there was a lot of people from a lot of other organizations that heard that and added a lot of great transportation options for people, especially people with disabilities. The Valley Express, I was actually at that meeting last year or 2 years ago maybe, and we sat and listened to an individual talk about the need for that, and lo and behold, we have it. So, I mean, this kind of stuff does work. My only question right now, beyond that, and I thank you, Dolores, for championing this because it's very important, is how many people and comments have we had so far this year for the unmet needs?
As of yesterday, we are right under 100. So we still have another week or so to go, but as of yesterday, we're right about under 100 comments.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Hi, Dolores. My question is just, I noticed that on the community meetings, there wasn't any offerings in like See Me More Park, Thousand Oaks. Is that based on like lessons learned in previous processes? They're not well attended, or is there a reason?
A little bit, yes. We've had community meetings, you know, we didn't host anything in the East County this year. We did host one in Camarillo last year, which was our most attended one. So we decided to do it in Camarillo again. And just, you know, time permitting didn't allow us to get something out in the East County, but we did hold a virtual meeting, which we opened up to everybody. So if it was somebody trying to give a comment from Simi Valley or Thousand Oaks or, you know, anywhere in the county, they could have attended our virtual meeting.
Any other questions or comments? Do you have any public comments?
We have no public comments, Chair Judge, so I believe we can close the public hearing now.
All right, so at this time, we'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Okay, moving on to commissioner appointments to external entities. So far, we have we dropped off some people this year, so we have some vacancies on some commissions. The first one on the list is LOSAN, and I hear that told that Jim White, who was our alternate, would like to move up to the primary spot. Is this true? This is true. Okay. And that Chris Enegren was arm twisted into being the alternate.
That's what I heard. I'll do it if Jim White doesn't miss a meeting. Do you need a motion?
I think you do.
I think we can do a motion at the end or for each
Oh,
one.
at the end, okay. All right.
Okay.
If anybody, first, I guess I have to ask if anybody else would like to serve on those committees. Apparently, it's popular. You have to be forced to do it. Okay. Second is an appointment, primary member to the Coast Rail Coordinating Council, or the CRCC. And again, I hear that Jim White would like to step up to be that position. That's what it says right here, Jim. Anybody else would like to do that?
It kind of ties together.
Okay, that's what I was told. And the next one is a single appointment to the California Association Councils on Government, and I hear that Jenny Crosswhite would like to do that. Cool. All right. Appointment as an alternate to the California Vanpool Authority, and I hear that Terry Brogy would like to do that. Okay. But I love the motivation. It's awesome. Okay. So,
Meeting next month.
Mr.
Chair, could I move?
sure you can.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair.
Next item 13, update on US 101 high occupancy vehicle HOV Express bus widening project. Approval, environmental document.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Peter DeHaan, Director of Programming. And for a significant amount of time, Commission staff and the consultant team have been working in the background on developing the plan for the US 101 improvements through Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, Oxnard, and Ventura. And we've been coming back periodically for updates with you. The last one was over a year ago. We were holding off until we had something significant to show you, and at this point we feel we have that. So the big news is we are very close now to releasing the draft environmental document to the public for comment. We expect that to be around the middle of 2025. We're wrapping it up, and Caltrans is doing some of the final reviews. So what we want to do here is give you a bit of an idea of what to expect in that draft environmental document when it comes out to the public. And the process is the draft environmental document, and then there's a chance to comment, and then it goes back to do the final environmental document. We have with us Melissa Brady. She's her title Vice President from WSP, and she's the project manager for the consultant team. And she's going to briefly review the history of the project, how it got to where it is now, describe a bit about the public review process coming up and how that's going to be organized, and then also give you a preview of some of the significant issues that they're going to be put out to the public as part of the document. So, I'll turn over to her now, except for one thing, which is just to say one of the issues that she's going to describe is about given the state requirements now to mitigate and address vehicle miles traveled. She's going to talk about the findings for that and the proposed recommendation. And it's just important to point out that we are actually considered to be, and in discussion with Caltrans, they've confirmed that we're in a good position here because this commission and VCTC staff, including Amanda Fagan, had the foresight to launch and go through what's called the VMT Adaptive Mitigation Study. And so that laid a lot of the groundwork to allow us to be able to, we didn't know at the time we were doing that it was going to help the 101 project, but it actually has helped quite a bit. So with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, Chair, Judge, and Commissioners. As Peter said, my name is Melissa Brady. I'm here this morning to provide a review of the project development process and provide a status update as to where we are for the US 101 improvement project. So today I'll be starting with providing a brief project background and overview, as Peter had stated, and discussing the importance of the project. Next, I'll be touching on the public involvement efforts that have been ongoing for this project, and the current alternatives under study, and then moving on to the ongoing project tasks that are underway. I'll then be wrapping up today's presentation to discuss some of the early action project determination, or the next steps of the project. So with that, I'm going to start with the background and overview. In past presentations, we've shared some information on past studies. As shown, those date back to 2011 when the US 101 was first identified as the roadway network's highest priority within the region. The WSP team came on board in 2018 to start the environmental document. That was followed closely behind, as Peter said, by the US 101 Communities Connected study, which was developed in 2020. This study was of particular significance because it was a development of being a multimodal corridor study that looked as options for enhancing modes of travel in addition to the freeway. Since the determination of final set of alternatives, we've been performing the traffic modeling and analysis, including assessing the vehicle miles traveled, which was just discussed, preparing the engineering evaluations such as impacts to drainage and utilities, among many other studies, and developing the environmental technical studies in support of the environmental document. At this time, virtually all of the engineering documents are complete, as well as many of the environmental technical studies, with the team actively working towards the draft environmental document. As Peter touched on, the project is set to go to public circulation later this year, and then the project will be completed following the selection of a preferred alternative. In prior presentations, we've shared detail on how this project will improve traffic flow. So a few key items here is that the US 101 has been identified as the Ventura County Highway Network's greatest area of need for more than a decade. This is particularly of note because many areas of the US 101 have not been improved since the 1960s. Both jobs and residences are focused around the US 101, which creates more than half of the trips in the corridor staying within the project area. Additionally, there's no continuous parallel routes within the area, which really leads us to what it means for the future, which is that speeds will continue to decrease and travel time will increase. Both person and goods movements will be constrained by the 101 corridor. And while there are several options for travel in the corridor, single occupant vehicles on the freeway, transit, and rail, an additional option would enable travelers to opt out of congestion, which is listed as a key action in Caltrans' Climate Action Plan for transportation infrastructure. Throughout this development process, VCTC has implemented continuous public involvement and outreach programs. Here are a few of those highlighted efforts. So at the start of the project, the team developed a project website, ourfuture101.org, that describes the project and steps we're going through to reach a decision on a preferred alternative. It also describes the corridor issues of this project that we are trying to address. It also lists past and future meetings and gives the public an opportunity to stay connected if they provide their contact information. The public can also send questions and comments directly through the website to VCTC. In addition to this, we're also using Instagram as a way to outreach with the public. If you happen to be on Instagram, please feel free to follow us at ourfuture101. So initially, we used the website and our Instagram post to advertise our 4 scoping meetings, which were conducted back in April of 2019. At this time, we were able to meet with interested citizens in each of the 4 corridor cities to hear their thoughts about the issues in the 101 corridor and get their reactions to the range of possible alternatives. As the project moved forward, we've sent out e-blast and provided website updates. We've continued to post on social media. And then, of course, we've come here to the commission and provided presentations as well. In addition to the ongoing outreach, as the project heads into public circulation, additional efforts will be made to keep the surrounding communities informed. Along with the notice of availability, which will be distributed at the time of public circulation of the draft environmental document, the team will be including information in local publications, posting to social media, once again through our project website as well as through our partnering agency social media accounts, and utilizing the project website. Additionally, a series of public hearing meetings will be conducted to give community members the opportunity to speak to the project team and learn more about the project. These meetings will be held in person and virtually, with locations centrally located throughout the corridor communities. These meetings, similar to the public scoping meeting, will be in an open house format with a 30-minute live and recorded presentation. The difference in these meetings is that there will be the ability to provide for the public to provide comments both in person and online. In addition, the team is exploring opportunities to utilize a virtual meeting room, which would provide for interested parties to explore information at their convenience and submit their comments through that meeting room. Next, I'm going to be touching on some of those alternatives and giving you a brief recap if you are not already familiar. So at our last presentation, which was in May 2023, the WSP team presented the alternative selection process, the alternatives that were evaluated, and the 3 alternatives that were ultimately approved by the PDT for further study. This includes the no-build, the HOV express bus lane with auxiliary lanes, and the HOV express bus lane with auxiliary lanes and design variations. I'm going to give a brief detail on each of these. The first being the no-build. Exactly as it sounds, it is the do-nothing approach. This provides a baseline of which we can compare the build alternatives to. Alternative 2 adds an HOV lane for carpools, vanpools, and express bus service in each direction on the US 101 from approximately Moore Park Road to near California Street. This alternative would also include adding auxiliary lanes between certain on and off ramps where they improve the flow of traffic on the freeway. One of the unique features about the Alternative 2 option is that in both the northbound and southbound direction, between Vineyard and Victoria, there is currently an existing spare lane. This alternative would utilize that additional GP lane and convert it to an HOV lane to prevent any structure widening at this location. Alternative 3 is very similar to Alternative 2. It also provides the HOV lane in each direction from Moore Park Road to near California Street. It would also include design variations that would improve the freeway alignment on the Conejo grade, improve a southbound bottleneck near Dawson Drive, and in the northbound HOV lane south of California Street to improve operations. Unlike Alternative 2, however, at that same structure between Vineyard and Victoria, the project proposes to restripe the structure to maintain the existing GP lane configuration. So those inside median lanes would be slightly more narrow, but would allow for the ability to include the HOV lane, again, with no structure widening. Taking into consideration the alternatives under evaluation, it's also important to understand what it means as it pertains to the operations of the freeway. The table at the top of the screen includes anticipated operations of the main line in a no-build condition for the 2060 year. It is anticipated by that time, it would take a driver approximately 50 to 60 minutes to drive the 27-mile corridor in that peak hour, maintaining an average speed of approximately 33 miles per hour. Or to give a more clear identification of what exactly this means, we use the travel time index, which provides the ratio of a peak period travel time compared to the free flow condition time. So to give a quick example of that, a travel time index of 1.5 would indicate that a trip that would normally take 30 minutes in a free flow condition would now take you 45 minutes during that peak period. So as you can see in 2060, it is anticipated that it will take drivers approximately twice the amount of time to navigate the corridor in the congested peak period as compared to a free flow condition. When comparing this information to the alternatives under consideration, we're able to identify operational improvements from the driver's perspective. So for Alternative 2, it is expected that we would see a 16 to 17% reduction in travel time in the northbound direction, or a 5 to 31% reduction in the southbound direction. One item to note is in the southbound direction that high improvement of the 31% is in the AM peak period. Alternative 3 likewise would see a 17 to 20% reduction in the northbound direction, or a 5 to 32% reduction in the southbound direction. Again, noting that 32% is in the AM peak period. In addition, the average speed would be expected to see about an 18 to 23% improvement in the northbound direction between the two alternatives, or a 4 to 46% improvement in that southbound direction between the two alternatives. And likewise, that travel time index, we're seeing anywhere from a 4 to 31% improvement, depending on the direction and the alternative selected. Moving on, I'm going to provide some updates on what the team is actively working on today. Of these ongoing tasks, I'm going to be touching on the wildlife movement study, the vehicle miles traveled, which I know we've mentioned a few times already, or VMT, cultural and historical resources, and the sound wall studies. So starting with the wildlife movement study, during agency reviews of a report called the Wildlife Connectivity Assessment that was prepared specifically for the US 101 Improvement Project, the need was identified for data related to the movement of wildlife in the Conejo Pass area surrounding the Conejo Grade. This was done to determine how to best address the need for wildlife to cross the US 101 in this area. VCTC applied for and received a Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant, which is currently being utilized to study wildlife movement and evaluate wildlife connectivity. On the screen, you'll notice a number of wildlife activities highlighted thus far, including images of the young foxes, multiple crossings of mountain lions and coyotes passing under the 101 freeway. And what was really exciting was that they had their first badger sighting in the area. Updates specific to the wildlife study will be provided by the National Park Services in future commission meetings. As previously mentioned, the US 101 Improvement Project began in 2018. Starting on July 1st, 2020, the agencies analyzing the transportation impacts of new projects must now look at a metric known as vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, instead of level of service. VCTC has been developing a program of appropriate mitigation strategies to address the anticipated increase in VMT, including, as Peter previously mentioned, the release of the US 101 Communities Connected Study and the Adaptive Mitigation Plan. Through these efforts, a series of mitigation solutions to mitigate the increase of VMT along the 101 have been developed to provide holistic solutions to improve the corridor and meet community needs. This includes bike and pedestrian projects, solutions for congested corridor programs, application projects such as charging stations, development of affordable workforce housing in high transit areas, mobility hubs, which includes park and ride lots, transit van pool programs, bicycle marketing programs such as bike share programs or bike training, and mobility as a service. The mitigation program will commit a total of $243 million for the multimodal projects in this corridor. This is anticipated to be about less than 20% of the total project cost of the US 101 Improvement Project. Additionally, as part of the environmental analysis, the team has been conducting impacts to local cultural and historical resources. Based on the proposed improvements, 3 locations were identified of specific interest. From the screen, you'll notice there's a couple highlights, and you'll have to forgive me, I know it's a little hard to see some of this line work. But to the south of the US 101, there is the Pleasant Valley Fields, which is highlighted in yellow, and the Cayugas Creek bike path that is outlined in kind of a magenta or purple dashed line. To the north of the 101 is the third resource, being the Adolfo Camarillo Heritage Grove that is highlighted in green. This particular property extends between Santa Rosa Road and Lewis Road, containing a double row of eucalyptus trees that were originally planted in 1892. The idea behind this is that the original Main Street would be shaded for travelers in this area. As you can see, the area is extremely tight, with the 3 resources being within extremely close proximity to the US 101 corridor. While the design team is conducting efforts to minimize impacts to the greatest extent possible, it is anticipated that there will be a handful of trees that are impacted at the Heritage Grove Park. Mitigation efforts will be made in coordination with various historic and resource agencies to ensure efforts are made to maintain the character-defining features of the property and protect the resource to the greatest extent possible. Additionally, locations of noise abatement, such as sound walls, are an ongoing effort. As a part of the project environmental investigation, a noise study was prepared, which identified 53 feasible sound wall systems. Of these 53 walls, it really represents 87 individual sound walls, which benefit up to approximately 1,300 residents and non-residential land uses between the 2 different alternatives. Through this process, the noise abatement decision report is then developed, which evaluates the feasibility of noise abatement, including sound walls that meet the design goals of the project. Specifically, the NADAR establishes the overall reasonableness of the abatement based on 3 specific factors: the cost of the noise abatement, noise reduction design goal, and one of the most important, is the viewpoint of those benefiting. Currently, the draft NADAR has been approved by Caltrans and is pending public circulation of the draft environmental document to obtain public feedback. And again, to receive the viewpoints of those benefited properties for final determination. Next, I'll be discussing the early action project determination that will direct the project team as to the next steps after the PAD is complete. This includes the early action phasing strategy, which will include an assessment of the project elements that can be built and provide benefits to the corridor if they are the first phase of the overall project construction efforts. So the first step is for VCTC to determine how much funding will be available for the first phase of construction. This is assuming the existing funding sources only. If new sources are identified, the total available funding, of course, may change, and the extent of the first phase project would need to be reevaluated. Concurrently, the project team has been preparing construction cost estimates for the total project with data that can be evaluated by phase. To assist the team in identifying potential first phase locations, an operational benefit analysis is also being performed to see what phases provide the greatest bang for the buck. So to give an idea of how the phasing is broken down, the team started with geographical segments because, again, this is a 27-mile corridor. So it was broken down into 5 equal cost segments within Thousand Oaks, the Conejo Grade, Camarillo, Oxnard, and Ventura. This allowed the team to break the project into more manageable pieces and better understand how far funding could stretch based on the geography and the challenges that may exist within each of those areas. Additionally, the team is actively evaluating segments based on current anticipated funding opportunities to determine segments that may have the largest operational benefit. In addition to the construction phasing, the team's been monitoring emerging technology solutions that may offer additional improvements to the operational efficiency of the mainline system while capacity improvement projects are underway. So one of these specific emerging technologies growing in interest nationally is coordinated adaptive ramp metering, or what we like to refer to as CARM. So to give a Reader's Digest version, because this is a complex system, CARM is a complex ramp metering and freeway management system which utilizes multiple control algorithms to optimize traffic flows. Through these algorithms, the system has the ability to balance the ramp demand and queuing corridor-wide, constantly adjusting to real-time traffic conditions to prevent or minimize the breakdown of traffic flow. Unlike many traditional freeway improvement projects, CARM is a non-capacity, non-tolled solution. Rather, the focus of CARM is on installing enough vehicle detectors in the right locations to provide that real-time traffic intelligence and managing the number of vehicles in the corridor, entering the corridor to prevent bottlenecks and freeway breakdown, providing for a comprehensive package of strategies to better manage freeway operations and optimize traffic flow. So I know this is a new concept, so I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, cool, emerging technologies. How do we know that this is a good idea and why are you looking at it? So to give a brief background, Smart Freeways was initially started in Australia. That is where it was created. Started about 15 years ago. And today it has proven results in Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth. Melbourne alone has over 100 freeway miles and over 120 ramp meters that are in operations today, and it is constantly growing. Some of the reported results from Melbourne include 50% increase in sustainable peak flow, reduction in collisions by approximately 30%, increased travel time by 42% during peak periods, and a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 11%. The results of these efforts create an estimated economic benefit of approximately 2 million Australian dollars or 1.3 USD. So in addition to those Australian projects, it has been done in the US. The I-25 in Denver was actually the first managed motorways in the US. So they completed a 9-month study back in 2022 with promising results, including 40% reduction in total travel delay, increased travel reliability, and overall improved safety within the corridor. The I-15 Smart Freeways project in Temecula, which is the first in the state, is currently in construction today and is slated to begin operations by fall of this year. In addition, the 680 pilot in Contra Costa County is also ongoing and is currently in the PS&E phase. Construction is anticipated to begin in 2027 on that project. Additionally, I have Utah on there because they have recently received a congested corridor grant to work towards the implementation of a smart freeway system in Salt Lake City, with the goal to be in operations by 2028. Again, this system is an emerging technology and still very new to the US. So while it does not offer the additional mobility options as this HOV project, it has been identified as a complementary solution that may offer additional benefits in the near term and maximize operational benefits of the ultimate project improvements.
Melissa, if I could jump in here really quick, I just, this CARM, emerging technologies, I found very fascinating. Many of you have seen these type of emerging technologies in the past, different areas. We discussed some of that in our strategic planning session in Santa Paula a year and a half ago. My focus up to that point had been largely on what can we do with individuals using, PDAs or phones to better coordinate more efficient trips. But I think the interesting thing about this is you're using the fixed guideway, the highway, which Caltrans owns. and when I first heard it, I thought, well, wouldn't it just immediately cause backup? If you have these meters and they're all linked by an algorithm to efficiently allow flow, wouldn't that just back everything up into the into the cities or the communities? And apparently it doesn't happen that way at all. It's almost imperceptible because they are so well aligned in Australia or these other areas where they're operating. So what our stretch of 101 between LA County and Ventura County and Santa Barbara County is, I thought, a perfect opportunity to look at that. And at the end of the day, it could be enormously less expensive also, because the cost of adding another lane or capacity enhancements are extremely expensive. So I appreciate Melissa and WSP are kind of, it's fair to say that you're the company that's most involved doing this type of work right now, and they've been doing a great job for us. But it's an exciting possibility. I know Caltrans is evaluating it too. It is emerging technology, but I'm giving a presentation at the taxpayers group later this month. Some of you may see that on the future of transportation. So wish me luck. But I think this idea that we can make our roadways more efficient through this type of technologies and perhaps not have to add an enormously expensive capacity enhancing lane was intriguing. So that was why I asked it to be part of this presentation, part of what we're looking at here. So anyway, I didn't mean to jump into your presentation, but
no, it was good timing because again, thank you for having me today. We do look forward to returning to the commission in the future to provide future updates on the progress of this project. Thank you for your time again, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So from the driver's perspective, they won't really notice a difference on it. And by that, I mean that on a typical timed ramp meter that'll adjust or even adjust based off of the time of the day, this one is adjusting based off of the congestion on the main line. So again, one of the key features is providing the vehicle detection in the right locations. For this particular system, it's about every third of a mile on average or in key locations. But what it does is it signals to the ramp meters that there is a developing bottleneck and will trigger the systems to turn on. In addition, it allows the meters to speak to each other. So that way, if you don't have one ramp meter that is taking up all the space, so to speak, on the main line. So it can slow down entering vehicles or speed them up based off of the congestion at that specific ramp. And it manages that across the corridor. So it may call in meters either downstream or upstream to help better manage a particular ramp that may be developing a heavier congestion. There are built-in algorithms within the ramp meter that help control it. One of the big concerns that we've heard is, what about backing up onto the arterials? The system is, again, built on algorithms to ensure that there are safety nets built in, that it can speed up the level of entering vehicles to prevent that backup from happening on arterials. So for RCTC, for instance, part of their pilot study is to show how that can happen because they do have a current operational ramp meter that is backing up onto the arterials. So part of that project is to resolve that and pull all of the queuing back onto the ramp.
And thank you for the presentation. It's great. Other than the model you use for cyclists, I thought it was a very good presentation. Are you proposing this type of management in addition to, or you mentioned it's complementary? Can we have one without the other, or is it required to be together?
You actually could have one without the other. The idea behind CARM, or we refer to it as managed motorways as well. CARM is a specific element within the managed motorways that can be used. It's a suite of offerings that can be developed, both, it can be integrated into a larger system, not just the main line or not just ramp meters. But really the idea of the CARM system is to optimize what you're already doing and try to improve by minimizing the friction that congestion is causing.
So I assume that the numbers that you were talking about earlier in no build do not assume use of this technology.
That's correct.
So are we looking at doing some sort of a simulation of if you were to do something like this, what impact it could potentially have?
So this is where it gets sticky because, again, it's algorithms. So this isn't something that can be easily modeled because it is based off of user behavior largely. And the idea is that we can develop information to give to the users of the system to be able to adjust habits. For instance, in Denver, what we saw is everybody enters the freeway at 7 o'clock in the morning. Just magically, all of a sudden, 7 o'clock hits and we have bottlenecks. It develops almost instantaneous. So trying to use that information to address those behaviors. So that's the first challenge with trying to model it. But what we are seeing is that in heavily congested freeways, we are seeing a loss of efficiency of up to 60%. So it's the equivalent of about a full lane of traffic is what we're able to recapture with a system such as CARM.
I mean, because part of the reason why I'm asking is that I'm imagining that, let's say we pick alternative 2 or 3 and we decide we're going to go for it. How many decades is it going to take to actually build it out and come up with all the funding? And I mean, they've been working on the road to Santa Barbara for years and years and years, and the construction has made it worse. So I'm just trying to get a sense of, I'm not saying we don't do it, and I don't know where we come up with all the money, but I'm also looking at, I'm just wondering if there's some other, I'm just curious if there could be some other things that might not cost as much and could get better flow and connectivity, and it could be a nightmare driving the 101 for a really long time to hopefully get the benefits of the, anyway, I was just.
Jim?
I agree. The question I have is that it's, and thank you, Chair. We have these ramp meters up and down 101, even in Simi Valley, Camarillo. I noticed one in Camarillo. It's never on, but how could we tie, oops.
Thanks. If I could just remind all commissioners when you're speaking, if you want to be picked up on YouTube, it just helps to speak into the microphone. Otherwise, you can't hear you, but thank you.
How could we tie the existing ramp meters in now as opposed to looking into it, getting it down the road, spending 20 years, putting this whole thing together if we go that way? I like to see little goals. This may be the first thing we do, the second, third, up to what we're going to do. And again, the ramp meters we have now, I know when I drive through Simi Valley, sometimes it's on, sometimes it's not. But the one in Camarillo, I've never seen it on, and I know there's a meter there. But how can we tie those into doing something now so that we have some relief now as opposed to waiting for everything to happen at the end.
Do you want me to take that, or do you want to?
I don't know if I understand.
Please jump in. No, it's a good question. And again, just a reminder, Caltrans owns the freeways, so we work with them in partnership. I'd say the the traditional ramp metering in general, I think it's been helpful in some areas, but we have because they're not all linked and connected. I think Caltrans looks at it as something they want to make sure they optimize because I think you could have a situation where, because they're not linked, cars are backing up onto a ramp. So, I believe it's something they're looking at, all the time. It is a resource issue too. And back to your question, Commissioner Crosswhite, part of the reason we're looking at this is that to have an option that would cost millions, tens and tens of millions less than just building a new lane, which as you point, I'm from Santa Barbara originally. Believe me, I've been driving in that traffic in one way or another now for a long time. And Marlon, please, I think that's just the nature of construction of freeway projects all over the state. They are costly. They create traffic sometimes, but when they're completed, there are improvements. So.
Okay, we have Jeff and then Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I apologize if the question's already been answered and when I stepped out, but it was suggested that the environmental impact statement or the public input process would start later this year, maybe mid-year. Will that include all of the alternatives, or will it be by then just be one of the alternatives and focused on a single course of action versus the options that are presented here? And secondly, you can tell the robust debate amongst this group. Once that's out there and is solicited for public opinion and input, constituents along the 101 corridor are going to have all kinds of input and ideas and opinions. And I'm hoping that we can coordinate very closely on understanding that timeline so that we can prepare to receive that input ourselves for those that represent constituencies along the 101. Anyhow, just the question on the alternatives, and then just to staff really to choreograph this pretty well before it goes out and becomes a public document that is soliciting review. I think it'd be good to really hone down on how we're going to go forward with it.
And Commissioner Gurel, I thank you, and that's part of why we're moving into this community input process. I hear what you're saying, and having been through many projects, complex projects, I think we look at the communication part of it as foundational. So we will continue to do that and to make sure that we communicate with all 10 cities, with the county, and with residents as we have been doing so far on this project, but also as it moves forward. Because you're right, there are what we just learned from the fires and just other issues that we're facing. Communication is always at the center of these types of projects.
So to answer your first question, all of the alternatives will move forward. The idea behind the environmental study is to develop viable solutions. So as part of our screening process, we did eliminate alternatives that were not viable. Those were obviously ones that we did not want the public to get hopes on or think that those were possible solutions if there were reasons to believe that they were not viable. The two alternatives, alternative 2 and 3, having each an HOV lane in each direction. Ultimately, what we want is to hear what the public thinks of those options, and so we can bring that back to the PDT for final determination of the preferred alternative based off of that feedback. As far as the communication with all of you, all of the city staffs have been great. They've been active participants in the PDTs, so they've been very actively involved, attending monthly meetings as well as additional coordination meetings as needed. And part of that outreach effort is also working with the public information officers within each of your cities. And in addition, as the draft environmental document goes out to circulation, each of you will be provided an advanced copy as well. So that way you have the opportunity to ask the team questions that are relevant to your constituents and be best prepared for that.
thank you for the presentation. And just a couple of quick questions is, and pardon my ignorance, being a newbie here, is this, can you monitor on-ramps and off-ramps? Because I believe Caltrans also usually, if not all the time, control the stoplights that exist on the off-ramps.
The main answer is yes, that is possible. That particular feature has not been tested to date within the US, although it is done in Australia. It can be implemented as small or wide as needed. Currently, what we look at for the off-ramps is really ensuring that we have the most accurate data, so it does provide us the origin destination information needed to understand where those bottleneck locations are, and also ensure that the information is coming back to us that 1 + 1 does in fact equal 2.
And then a question is the use of cell phone data. Is it possible, or have you done any of that analysis to determine where people are starting from and what their starting point and their ending point typically is during the highest peak hours?
For this system, we have not. There are studies going on nationwide that are using cell phone data. This one in particular, the current projects use a device called a turtle. It's a low-profile vehicle detection device that sits about 3 inches above the roadway. We use that in addition to loops or census pucks to see where the vehicles are and collect not only the occupancy of where they are in the lane, but their speed. Because of the frequency of the detection devices, it does have the ability to give us a large amount of data, including where they're originating from, where their destination is, and also identify where those weaves are occurring. So we're excited to see where technology goes in the future and how we can best utilize that.
Excellent, thank you.
And if I could just quickly jump in on that, sorry. As part of our, Commissioner Halter, as part of our briefings for you, I will share with you that VCTC on a parallel but related track, we are using that cell phone technology as part of our CLEAR program, as part of Amanda Fagan's team, and it's in some exciting data that we're utilizing that will help us with not only this project, but with, I think, with all our mobility projects. So,
You go with Commissioner Tremblay now.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And Melissa, thanks for a good presentation. I've got questions on a couple of different topics, but let me start first with the CARM. I'm a little unclear for NEPA and CEQA purposes whether the CARM alternative, whether the CIRM thought would be actually an alternative in the study, as opposed, in other words, it would be added as a separate alternative to alternatives 1 and 2, and perhaps as an incremental measure or not. We can certainly have that policy discussion. But how are you treating it from a NEPA standpoint? I'm not real clear.
So first and foremost, CARM would be, again, we are just monitoring it at this time. It is not considered part of the US 101 improvement project at this time. That is largely because our project limits would require that we would have to address some further into those ramps than what the US 101 currently proposes. So this would be a complementary but separate project. As far as NEPA and CEQA goes, we've had large success with obtaining a CECE for some of our projects. And basically what that means is we're able to have a streamlined document to speed up the project phase. So RCTC, for instance, because it was minimal civil improvements that were required, it was primarily ITS equipment. We were able to maintain all of the improvements within the Caltrans right-of-way and do a streamlined document. We started the process in 2021, and again, we're actively in construction today. So you can see that's from starting with the environmental document all the way through construction was less than 4 years.
Well, what I'm really kind of getting at is once this document is released, we'll get a fair amount of public comment with respect to the CARM modeling. And the question will be, well, why isn't that being reviewed specifically as an alternative? I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I'm a little concerned. I've got some substantive things I want to talk about in a minute, but from a process standpoint, I'm not quite sure I'm tracking this, because isn't the efficacy of the EIS dependent upon a review of all alternatives. And if that is left out of the EIS, then isn't it subject to challenge?
So right now,
At least from a policy standpoint.
yeah, right now, because CARM is still considered an emerging technology, it is not included as an alternative. We've already conducted those studies. We are in the development of the draft environmental document. But in addition, we still really require Caltrans buy-off on it before any other projects proceed into operations. So at this time, it is not an option that can be selected over the other two alternatives as it applies to the purpose and need of this project.
So, okay, so that's the legal side. From a policy standpoint, my thought would be we're still going to have to react to that issue and that question, which leads me to the next thought, and that is it the intent, Martin, to come back to our commission and have ultimately a policy discussion on prioritization in our view of what ought to occur in the process?
Yes, I mean, we would be coming back and getting guidance from the commission based on all the potential alternatives that are put out there. And again, this demonstration project, but we're going into an information gathering phase right now. But we will be returning back, I would say at least once, probably twice to make any, semi-final determinations on this process. And I just want to make it clear, my intent with this was, having followed this project for a long time, even before I moved to Ventura County, you have this challenge where the whole project, in very rough numbers, is probably $1.5 billion. We have about 250 million right now. So that's a pretty big chasm. VCTC has tried 3 times to pass a countywide sales tax, which have funded these type of projects in other counties, most recently in 2016. We've not succeeded. I still, consider myself an eternal optimist, but I still think it's possible we may have that. But that reality is shaping future decisions on this.
I get that. I understand that. I think I'm sensitive to an assertion that would be, wait a minute, you spent a lot of time looking at this project, which is great. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but you've potentially omitted the real review and analysis of this potential technology that could be an incremental and much less costly measure to the $1 billion plus side. And so and I'll just leave this as a comment because I had a couple of other questions, Mr. Chair. I'm concerned about this from a process standpoint and from a policy standpoint, and it also devolves into what ultimately you're going to be coming back to our commission with, and a discussion on prioritization, because we may well get members of the public saying, well, okay, you've got this project out here, but what are you going to, aren't you going to look at the less costly alternative first? And does that mean that you've spent all this money on this PAED and you're going to go put it on the shelf? And you've spent a lot of public monies to do this. So I'm just sensitive to this from a process standpoint. Next question is, you mentioned that you'd be getting a draft to people. Is that going to be an administrative draft, or is that going to be a draft that's not yet publicly released? And if so, how are you going to do that?
So the draft refers to the version that we want the public to comment on before we develop a final draft. So the final draft will ultimately have the preferred alternative in it. We want public feedback to receive information from them on what they desire.
Oh, I see. I misunderstood because I thought I was construing your comments as saying that there would be some sort of administrative draft that would be coming back to the commission and its members and member agencies for review prior to final release of the public draft.
No, you'll receive an advanced copy of what the public will receive. Okay. So it will be available for the public to reach out. They have access to the full document during that 30-day period to give us comments.
Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, can you go back to the slide with the Adolfo Camarillo Heritage Grove? Thanks. So I just want to I want to make sure that my colleagues know how sensitive the Adolfo Camarillo Heritage Grove site is for the residents of Camarillo. It's an essential part of our city's character, and I think you know that. You've seen pictures of it, you drive it. A couple of issues here. First of all, I want to confirm that, can you confirm for me that the flow, or that the included within the project being analyzed is the auxiliary lane between Santa Rosa in the south to Flynn in the north? Is that part of the project?
There is an extension from Santa Rosa, but it does not connect to the Flynn Road exit as it stands today. That was in compliance with the 4F regulations that require that we develop an avoidance measure. So working hand in hand with Caltrans, we have developed options to help minimize the impacts. However, again, it does not have that extension to Flynn Road.
Well, I really appreciate your earlier comment about reaching out to the cities, and I know cities have all responded. I know Camarillo has responded very specifically to that. And I know that it's our city's view that that auxiliary lane between Santa Rosa to the south and Flynn to the north is essential to try to reduce the congestion. And so I was hoping to hear that that was actually part of the project study. On the other hand, as well, acknowledging that work in that area to be done would require the removal potentially of 7 of the heritage trees in this grove. I'm aware too that the city, and I want to make sure the commissioners are aware, city said, look, we feel strongly about this auxiliary lane and its need to be there to reduce the congestion. And we also recognize that the heritage tree, that we're going to have to remove some heritage trees, but we have some very specific mitigation measures that we request be included as part of your study. And we know that the tree removal is going to harm the historical resource. But on the other hand, the mitigation measures that the city proposed, and I just want to make sure, and it's very quick, that the commission recognize or understands this. We recommended hiring an arborist to evaluate all the trees in the grove, to remove the trees in the Caltrans right-of-way that conflict with the project, to build a barrier between the project and the grove to shield trees from noise and visual impacts, to replace any unhealthy trees, because there are a few in the grove, with new blue gum eucalyptus, and those can live 200 to 400 years, a lot longer than me. Install deep root irrigation to stabilize tree roots, and then trim the remaining trees for safety. So all of those are mitigation measures that we believe were extremely important if you're going to take out some of these existing trees, to have mitigation measures to protect the rest. So it was our city's specific request that on both of those counts, both with respect to the mitigation measures as well as with respect to the auxiliary lane, that your environmental documents include that analysis of the auxiliary lanes within our city limits. I'm still thinking that it doesn't. I would urge Caltrans and urge the consultant to include that analysis within these documents.
Did you want to say something first, Brian? Or?
Well, I'll just speak briefly. Thank you, Commissioner, for your comments on that. We definitely acknowledge those very seriously, and we acknowledge the special resource that we do have in the city of Camarillo. We will definitely work with the PDT and our partners at VCTC to make sure that, number one, the resource is not affected, and see also if the auxiliary lane that you're proposing can be part of any alternative. Of course, the final determination for the alternative scopes will be for the sponsor agency, which is VCTC.
Mr. Chair,
and I just want to
I would welcome, if I could just finish, Mark, if I can just respond, what I would welcome is Caltrans reaching out. I know Dave Klotzel, our Public Works Director, is here. We can have a very specific discussion about the city's view on that, and maybe if we could connect after the meeting and just talk about that briefly, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
And I just wanted to note, we have devoted a lot of staff time and resource time working with Caltrans on this. This is a fairly difficult issue and state law that it's not simple at all. But we will, I think, continue to do everything we can in this project. But I don't, at a certain point, I'm just not sure. Ultimately, my understanding was it wasn't VCTC's decision at the end of the day. We can talk about that more. I mean, this is dealing with a state issue, but we can certainly talk about that.
We may need some clarification on that. So thanks, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Broggie?
Thank you. Before I get back into CARM, I had a question with regard to the Conejo grade itself. And I'm at a point now where, given the option living in Fillmore, I would prefer to go over Grimes Canyon in heavy traffic or even no traffic, as opposed to going over the Conejo grade. I mean, I had 2 close calls in the last week on the Conejo grade, and it's the speed. It is absolutely the speed. And I don't know whether any of what we're talking about addresses that. But for me, that, and I don't know how anyone else feels, but when you choose Grimes Canyon over, Conejo grade, that's significant. But getting back to CARM, first of all, CARM, the acronym stands for what exactly?
Coordinated Adaptive Ramp Metering.
Okay. I won't remember that in 5 minutes. But, so if I understand correctly, what essentially it does is it has the meters on the on-ramps speaking to one another further down the road and calculating the number of vehicles getting on the freeway and then slowing them down further ahead. And it's all meter related on the on-ramps. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I have spent a whole lot of time on the I-25 in Denver in traffic, most recently in July of 24, so long after their pilot period completed. I saw absolutely no difference in traffic.
The system's off today. So once the pilot period ended there, they did turn the system off. It was a temporary grant that they had received.
So it was off at the end of the
in July
2022. Well, even years before that. I mean, I don't know. It was driving through Denver down to Colorado Springs, and it was a nightmare. So I'd like to just learn more about the whole process and how it works and how it, hear stories, successful stories in communities where, they saw some benefit to it.
Absolutely. And that is as RCTC specifically goes online. Now, noting that RCTC is only 3 interchanges, so it's a very small stretch to be able to run a pilot on.
Yeah.
But we are expecting to have the initial results in early 2026 on that project.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Engler, do you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Turning to another subject, you mentioned doing a wildlife study on Conejo grade. To our east of our city, there's a very large project going in the city of Agoura Hills, very expensive project. Are you looking at the use of existing undercrossings on the Conejo grade? Or are you looking at another bridge across, or what? Have you come to that part of your discussion or indications?
Give us 1 second.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Caitlin Brooks, Program Manager for Transportation Planning and managing the NPS Wildlife Study. To answer your question, the study is looking at where animals move, the data, and then they'll take a look at recommendations based on the data that they see of where the animals are going.
Are they currently using some of the undercrossings there on the Conejo grade?
They are. So they've seen a few crossings now of different types of,
So these are actual projects from the study that were done.
And NPS will come back with the recommendations with that study when it's done.
Thank you.
Good. Any further questions or comments? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank the commissions for this discussion. This is probably one of the issues that is going to be a lot of forethought, a lot of planning. And, I think whatever decision the commission ends up going forward on, there will likely be members of the public who might feel we should do something different, putting it mildly. But thank you. I think we are certainly at a better place in terms of the analysis that we've done on this. than we have been in the past. And I just want to thank the team under Peter DeHaan and WSP for working collaboratively on this, and looking forward to keeping you all updated as we go forward. So thank you. So.
Okay. Moving on to item 14, General Counsel's report.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Agency reports. I'll kick it off with SCAG. Yesterday we had our regional meeting. We also did not have a transportation committee. What we did, we had a joint committee meeting where we mostly discussed recovery efforts from the major fires that just happened in Los Angeles County. It was very informative, very enlightening, a lot more questions than answers, unfortunately, but they are getting it done. Many of you know that Simi Valley Landfill has been chosen as one of the places where they're going to place a lot of the debris from the fires, and to let everybody know that if your constituents are asking you, like they are asking me every day, none of the waste that's coming in the Simi Valley landfill is going to be toxic or hazardous. It's supposed to be treated prior to being transported. So when it gets to the Simi Valley landfill, it is just landfill. And yes, it will take a lot of trips. The landfill has been authorized by the county to run almost 24/7 until this debris is cleared and the situation is handled. So if you throw that out to your constituents, if they ask you, I know they're asking me every day. So that on that part, that was done. During one of the presentations was very interesting to me as being a former law enforcement officer. There's a new computer program coming out and it'll be active in March. It's called Crash. Basically, what this does is it allows you to go to your city on this website, anywhere in your city, any intersection, any street, and look up how many accidents have occurred, whether they be injury accidents, fender benders, or even deaths. And it gives you options through IA to basically from anywhere from, placing new signals to extra law enforcement at that certain area. It was an amazing, the way I looked at it, it was like very intuitive. And now I remember why we had to put all that stuff in all those traffic reports. It was told you what time of day the accidents happened, what the weather was like, all that kind of stuff. So it was very, very informative and something your traffic engineers will be very interested in. I think they will be, because that was a pretty good program. And I'm waiting for that to hit in March. When I have more information about that, and I'm probably going to try and get the person that gave that presentation on that certain program to come here and give it to us, because that was, like I said, very interesting. So that's what happened at SCAG yesterday. Moving on to Southern California Regional Rail Authority.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I was sitting here reflecting that our executive director said, we're a quarter of the way through the century and it's going really fast. And I personally, I don't think it was as fast as that excruciatingly long passing of the gavel from the chair to the vice chair and back and forth. But anyway, it just seemed like a
Efficiency is the virtue.
Efficiency is certainly a virtue. As far as Metrolink is concerned, wanted the commission to be aware at the last meeting, the Metrolink board unanimously approved authorizing the CEO for Metrolink to sign the agreement between VCTC and Santa Barbara County Association of Governments to provide startup costs for Metrolink to develop and implement the initial plans for the proposed Santa Barbara Ventura County intercommuter train. So that was good news. So that means now Santa Barbara CAG, VCTC, and Metrolink have all reached agreement, and so now the initial planning will go forward. So that's good news. And we did not have a January board workshop in light of the Los Angeles fires. We will be having a board workshop in March. So we will report back to you at that point. Bob, anything else from your standpoint?
No, that's it. Because of the fires, we were unable to have our workshop, but our next meeting is next week.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Los Angeles, San Diego, Losan. There you go. Just use that. Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we did not have a meeting in January, but we are having a meeting on February 18th. Martin and I are going to be presenting down in Orange County because there's a presentation for Mr. McDonald, who was on that committee for a long time. So that's the next meeting for Losan. And then briefly, just to, if I can talk about Losan, it's a 350-mile rail line through 6 counties. and this is really information for some of our new people. It's the second busiest inner-city passenger rail corridor in the United States. So it's kind of a big deal. Not like the McDonald's big deal, but something similar to that. It's just a big deal. There's 41 stations, 150 daily passenger trains, and so I'm looking forward to having Mr. Enegren as the alternate join me for all the meetings. And I'll let you know when they are. You'll know when they are. So other than that, that's all I have for Losan.
Thank you. CRCC, Mr. Grill.
I'll just say I'm grateful for Commissioner White's interest in stepping forward to be the primary on that. As the alternate, it's been a challenge for me. The meetings are typically on Fridays. They're in Santa Barbara or north of there. And they typically pick the Fridays where I have to travel to do my 1 week in a month Navy Reserve assignment. And it's just unfortunately been very challenging to make those. So I'm grateful for Commissioner White stepping up. And if anyone else is interested in rail policy, it's an amazing organization. And I'd be glad to negotiate away my alternate status. May cost you a cup of coffee.
I'm not sure that's allowed in the bylaws.
Yeah, maybe I went off agenda here a little bit. I apologize, but back to you, Mr. Chair. No report otherwise.
Thank you.
I was not notified it's Fridays. That's my day off.
We currently don't have a representative for the CalCog, so I guess, do we have any report from CalCog?
I can just give a brief. CalCog has been, active. They are part of what they do as an organization is really look closely and work on state budget, state planning issues. Obviously, a lot happening there. I am grateful that Commissioner Crosswhite will be representing VCTC on that board. Commissioner Mike Johnson had been serving for the past 4 years, but they provide a lot of good. I think it's one of the few organizations that takes kind of a statewide look at a lot of these issues. We're a huge state. We have a lot of representatives.
That's what I was going to say. That sounds like a nightmare committee. Where does that meet?
They meet. I mean, many of their meetings are still remote, so they're able to do that. But they do have annual meetings and quarterly meetings that take place in Northern and Southern California. So.
Okay. California Van Pool.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The California Van Pool has been around for quite a while, and obviously it's an exciting organization because they provide so many vehicles throughout the county. We have about 80 vehicles that provide transportation to people. Our next meeting, we are actually going up to Sacramento March 25th to meet with some of the lobbyists up there and try to get some ideas of what's the next step. We're really struggling with the idea of whether we want to go completely electric or not. Those vehicles, I think I mentioned last meeting, are 3 times as expensive as our other vehicles, and we're having a very difficult time even getting any. So we'll have more information about that down the road. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe you've heard recently in the city of Simi Valley, we lost our mayor. So I'd like the commission to indulge me in a moment of silence for Mayor Fred Thomas, please. Thank you. We are adjourned until 9 o'clock Friday, March 17th. At this
March
location.
7th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So